Lord, I just pray that the things I shared tonight would really just shine the light on that you've always been a part of my story, a part of my journey. And I just ask that you would bless those who are listening to it. Amen.
Amen.
I am a grateful believer in Jesus Christ. I struggle with codependency, grief, and childhood dysfunction. I claim victory over drugs and alcohol, and my name is Theresa.
Hi,
Theresa.
I was born in Los Angeles, California. I am the youngest of 6 siblings. My father was the son of an immigrant from Mexico. My dad was very charismatic, but he was also an alcoholic. Our lives were impacted by whether he was seeking recovery or not. When he wasn't drinking, we attended church and recovery meetings. My mother was born and raised in Rivera, New Mexico. She was a hard worker and the main provider in our home as I grew up. She was a devout Catholic and very active in the church. She played the piano at Mass and raised each of us to participate in the church. Some of my best childhood memories were attending church and fellowship within this community. My parents met working the fields of Colorado and New Mexico. My grandmother showed prejudice against people with dark skin, which my dad had. Growing up, I could tell she was a little fonder of our light-skinned grandchildren. I don't remember her ever treating me badly, just indifferent. I was told that when my dad asked my mom's hand in marriage, my grandmother did not agree. My mom decided to leave without her blessing, and my grandmother beat her with a broom and told her never to return. My mom was often tired and nervous, quick-tempered, and my dad's alcohol abuse caused me to feel unsafe and unprotected. My father worked for the Postal Service night shift, and my mom worked the day shift. I remember when she would leave me with my dad, but since he had to sleep, he would tie me up to his ankle so I wouldn't get into trouble. This often left me awake, bored, and confused. I have many memories of being hit with a vacuum cord or a brush, whatever she might have had in her hand, and my dad hitting my brothers with tools as they worked on the car. I love my parents, even though I often felt like I couldn't trust them. This led me to isolate and avoid difficult situations. I rebelled against this and became judgmental. When I was in elementary school, my brother Trini enlisted in the Army. Before he left for basic training, he went to the neighborhood grocery store and told them that I could put some snacks on his charge account. I remember feeling special, being able to treat my friends. Trini went to do a tour in Vietnam, and when he came back, he was not the same. He struggled with extreme PTSD and addiction, and his behavior was often erratic, screaming and cussing at my mom as he walked through the neighborhood. His behavior often led me feeling ashamed and embarrassed. When I was in high school, he held a picture of me when I was a child, and he punched it, and he cut his hand. I laughed. So he rubbed the blood off on my face. I buried those emotions, and this caused me, like I did with many other things and incidents that I went through. Years later, I shared the incident with my sister, and she replied, "You must have done something to deserve that." Her words hurt me, and I partly believed that I deserved it until I entered recovery. My sister was the oldest of the girls and had the primary responsibility of taking care of us. My sister Ramona was someone I looked up to. I remember her leaving the house dressed modestly, and she would change at school. I have this one memory of her as she was getting ready for prom. As I watched her, she looked so beautiful. I remember thinking that I wanted to be as beautiful as she was when I grew up. But as I got older, even more, I wanted to love others as well as she did. My paternal grandparents lived with us before I started elementary school. My paternal grandfather loved me well. I remember stretching my hands out like this, and he would put a coin in each of my palms. My grandmother was mean to him, and that confused me. When I was in kindergarten, I had left my lunch money on the table, and my grandfather walked to school to bring it to me. On his way there, he was hit by a car. being killed by a drunk driver. I was devastated, and I believed that it was my fault. The adults in my life, I can't remember them comforting me or assuring me that it wasn't my fault. All I knew is that he had died bringing me my lunch money. Soon after that, my uncle took my grandmother to live with him, and our home felt very empty. I spent a lot of time in my bedroom listening to records. It felt safe isolating in my room, away from my family. My brothers would regularly make fun of me, pull the heads off my dolls, throw them on the roof, occasionally stick gum in my hair. And I have one memory of them sticking their dirty socks in my mouth. At school, there was a boy who would squirt his mustard and ketchup packets on me. In 4th grade, he tripped me and fell, and I busted my chin open. The kids said that this little boy liked me, and that's why he did those things to me. This confused me, and I began to believe that people who liked you or loved you sometimes hurt you. I also have good memories of my childhood. I danced ballet folklorico. I had performances on Avera Street, a historical pedestrian street in Los Angeles. I also participated in a chess club and played competitively within the Los Angeles School District. However, my home life continued to be dysfunctional. My father was having affairs with women, and he often took my brothers with him on these endeavors. I wasn't aware of this until he left my mom for another woman. After that, my parents divorced. That didn't last long, and my father moved to New Mexico to work into the uranium mines in Grants, the town where my mom's family lived. Shortly after my parents separated, my mom started to study the Bible with Jehovah's Witnesses. During that year, it seemed like I lost my sense of family. We stopped celebrating holidays and birthdays, I think, which was even more difficult for me than my parents' divorce. The summer before my freshman year of high school, my mom let me visit my dad and stay with my sister Carol. That same summer, my parents reconciled and got married. I was a teenager, and I believe that because my parents were so dysfunctional, they had no authority to tell me what to do. Shortly after that, I was introduced to marijuana and alcohol, sometimes using with the same people my dad partied with. During my high school years, I became promiscuous, partied, ditched school. I met my husband Jimmy in my senior year of high school. He was a shy guy who didn't talk much, although we didn't start dating until a couple of years later. Jimmy and I moved in together shortly after meeting the second time, and he quickly had a second DWI. Ironically, my father helped Jimmy with his DWI, and he was able to avoid going to jail. He was placed in a program where he took Antabuse, a drug that made him sick when he drank, and he went to counseling. Jimmy and I married in December of 1985, just a few months after we met. Growing up, I didn't have high expectations, but I did know that I didn't want to marry an alcoholic. Shortly after this time, I became pregnant with our first son, Wayne. Jimmy was so happy, but I felt a lot of shame for marrying a man on his second DWI. I was in complete denial about my own problems, and I took no personal responsibility for the part I played in my situation. While Jimmy was on probation, he was not allowed to drive, but he hit a police car. I was 5 months pregnant, got out of the car. I went and I knocked on the police officer's apartment. He told me that I was the only one who had hit his car and never came in to confess it. He told me just to go, that his car had been hit so many times. Well, I had no problem admitting to other people's mistakes and poor choices. Shortly after Wayne was born, Jimmy decided that he was going to have anything in life. He wasn't going to achieve it drinking, and he quit alcohol and has been sober for 40 years. I, on the other hand, continued to drink to cope with my pain in my life. A year and a half later, our son Matthew was born, and thankfully I had enough sense to stop drinking during my pregnancies. Jimmy and I continued to build our lives together and raise our children. I learned to distract myself from my inner life by trying to be a good mom. I kept myself busy, putting on good appearances. We had a good life. We spent family time in summer at the lake. The kids played soccer, took karate. I was on the PTA as a classroom mom. I never left my sons alone. I made sure that I wanted to do things different than my parents did for me. And although Jimmy stopped drinking, he continued to smoke marijuana. I resented that. Those memories of my dad getting high replayed in the back of my mind, and I didn't want our kids to grow up experiencing that. I had stopped smoking when I became pregnant with our first son. I wanted out of my marriage. I was disappointed. This is what I expected marriage to be. I remember reading an article while waiting for my therapist. It was about divorce and the effects it had on the children. I knew then that I didn't want to hurt my children, so I stayed in my marriage. My sister Ramona was my best friend. We both had our children about the same time. When our kids were in elementary school, my sister was diagnosed with breast cancer. A few years after that, my dad was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. When my son Wayne was in 5th grade, he was diagnosed with depression and anxiety. He was later diagnosed with bipolar disorder. My dad died when my sons were in middle school, and my sister Ramona had been listening to Christian radio, and she told me about a program by James Dobson called Focus on the Family. I started to listen to Christian radio. I accepted Jesus as my Savior in high school when a tent revival came through our town. Although I walked away from him all those years ago, he never left me. Listening to Caleb radio at my kitchen sink, I rededicated my life to Jesus and started to attend Calvary Chapel Church. Still, I was unhappy with my life. My unmet expectations for myself and others weighed down on me. Since I was a child, I had built a fantasy life about what my life ought to look like. My reality was far from that. My sister eventually passed away. I met with the pastor at Calvary and shared with him how unhappy I was in my marriage. And he told me he was going to pray about my situation. And he said, "You must follow God's instructions of what I tell you." This was the first time that I surrendered my life to God's leading by submitting to the pastor's guidance. When we met next, he told me that I was exactly where God intended me to be and to trust God's plan. He told me he believed that my husband loved me and that I was exactly where I needed to be. For the first time, I was finally finding love that I so desperately needed in Jesus Christ. His perfect love couldn't be found in people, but in God himself. As my relationship with Christ grew, the desire to numb my feelings with alcohol began to subside. I spent many years, even as a Christian, believing that all I needed to do was just forge through all of this brokenness in my life, but I wasn't living. I was saying all the right things, but I was not experiencing the joy of my salvation. I first heard about CR several years before I started to attend. A friend from church had mentioned it to me when we shared about our childhood dysfunction, both growing up in alcoholic homes. The summer before I started to attend CR, my pastor's wife gave me some of these books that someone had donated. They were in a brown paper bag, and they had four participant guides in it. God was leading me to this ministry so he could help me uncover the hurt and the denial I carried for so long. In the summer of 2020, my youngest son Matthew posted a very disturbing message on social media. I called him, and when he answered, he said hello, and I heard a gunshot go off. He's fine. Followed by silence. I rushed to his apartment, but he wasn't there. When he finally returned, he asked me why I was there. And I told him that he needed help. And he pushed back and he told me that I was the one that needed help. Shortly after that, I stumbled onto an article about adult children of family dysfunction written by Celebrate Recovery. I reached out to the ministry leader. I didn't know what to expect, but I knew that I was broken inside. I knew I couldn't deny the pain that I felt any longer. I was empty and afraid. That same friend who originally shared with me about CR came with me the first night. I felt afraid, and I wondered if this program had anything for me. I was so surprised by the people's transparency about the things they struggled with. People welcomed me. I felt safe. As a newcomer, I remember sitting there wondering if I wanted to revisit the past from things that I thought I had already healed from. I continued to attend Celebrate CR on Friday night service for almost a whole year before I committed to join my first step study. I was able to identify the damage people's actions caused me, but holding resentment was my part. I also caused people pain in my actions and reactions. Inventory has helped me to better understand who I am apart from others. It has helped me to face hard truths about myself and those that I love. It has helped me to see that even through difficult things, there were also good times. It has given me the courage to face hard things, work through them, and process my feelings in the presence of God. The inventory process helped me have a healthier perspective of myself and others. Step 3, consciously choose to commit all my life and will to Christ's care and control. Happy are the meek. Having a sponsor has been an important part of my recovery. She helped me identify the areas in my life where I was in denial. She guided me as I worked on my inventory and shared some of her daily struggles. She gave me empathy and she didn't judge me as I worked on my inventory. Through her guidance, I learned to be accountable for my struggles. She helped me overcome the inability to share what I was feeling. Her perspective helped me to see the difference between the things I was responsible for in my relationships and those I wasn't. She encouraged me to lean in and have difficult conversations and how to set boundaries instead of avoiding my problems. She was instrumental in helping me understand how important it was for me to be intentional in my marriage and honor my husband. I have been in recovery for 5 years. I graduated from my first step study in July of 2022, co-led my second study in 2024, and I am currently in the Journey Continues book 5 through 8, the CR Journey. I have strong relationships with my first step study accountability and partners. They are part of my forever family, and I continue to grow in my new relationships within this ministry. I don't have to walk this life alone. I have forged new healthy relationships with women who have shared this journey of healing, restoration, and growth. I also attend therapy sessions as part of my recovery from grief and trauma. Recovery has helped me to see my life and the lives of those I love through a lens of grace. I am forgiven, so I can forgive others. At Celebrate Recovery, people identify themselves as grateful believers in Jesus Christ who struggle with a different sin issue. My struggle was not knowing who I was apart from other people, which is called codependency. I looked for the little brown bag that I had received that previous summer, and sure enough, inside were the 4 participant guides of CR. I knew that this was a sign that God was leading me towards this path of recovery. I came to CR because I wanted to help my son, but I quickly realized that I was the one who needed healing. Through step study, I became self-aware of my reactions to circumstances that reminded me of my broken past. I became aware of my own emotions and how my body felt around problematic situations, trying to control things outside of my power to control. I now understand that there are many more emotions to my hurt other than anger or sadness. It's okay to feel and express my feelings with the confidence that Jesus is going to meet me right where I'm at. The participants guide helped me answer hard questions about myself and my past. Through the reflection questions, I have identified my triggers and unhealthy responses to situations and people. They have helped me to identify my character defects and shed the light of truth in the areas where I need to work on. This introspection also helped me to see that I am also growing in my recovery. Step 4, we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. This is a part of recovery called inventory. This was hard for me since all of my life until I had learned to deny what I felt and experienced. Identifying the things that hurt me and offended me was easy, but it was so much harder for me to put into words the feelings that I experienced in my life. Jeremiah 29:11 says, the message says, I know what I'm doing. I have it all planned out. Plans to take care of you, not abandon you. Plans to give you a future and a hope. This was the first verse I clung to when I first became a Christian. I read this verse with the false expectations that my life would be perfect and that God would change all my circumstances into what I wanted and believed what my life ought to look like. Since recovery, I found out that they called Jeremiah the weeping prophet and that God was calling them to build, raise families still while in bondage. My son Wayne continued to struggle with his mental health for many years. Wayne passed away in March 2023. I am comforted by the fact that I will see him again. Because Wayne knew Jesus. Since coming to CR, I've experienced many difficult things. The loss of my mom, my son, my grandson, who experienced a traumatic brain injury. I could have never faced any of these things without the tools of recovery and the grace of Jesus. In the Serenity Prayer it says, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking this simple world as Jesus did, not as I would have it, was so beautiful to me because I lived so long wanting for things to be different. I'm learning that life can only be different if I surrender my will to Jesus. What I have learned is that God has been with me and continues to be with me through every circumstance of my life, turning everything for my good. He has never left me, and he will continue to walk with me as I take this simple world as it is, as Jesus did, trusting that he will make things right if I surrender to his will. 2 weeks before Wayne died, he told me not to worry about his dad going to heaven, and Jimmy accepted Christ as his Savior at Wayne's funeral. Jimmy and I will be celebrating our 40th wedding anniversary this December. Our relationship has had many stages over the years. It hasn't always been easy, and it has taken a lot of hard work. Jimmy and I couldn't be more different. He is quiet and reserved, and I am outgoing, and I wear my heart on my sleeve. He is my best friend. I can honestly say that we are in the best place in our relationship that we have ever been. Jesus is helping our marriage to stand on trust, love, respect, forgiveness, and God's grace. I admit, as in step 1, we admit that we are powerless over our own addictions and compulsive behaviors, and that our lives have become unmanageable. For I know that good itself does not dwell in me, and this is my sinful nature. For I have the desire to do what is good, but I cannot carry it out. Romans 7:18. If this is your first time here, or if you've been coming and you're not sure if you can heal from the things that have been done to you, or also that you have done to yourself or others, I ask you to give God a chance. I can't promise you that difficult things won't happen, but I can tell you that you will find people who will be the hands and feet of Jesus as they walk with you through this recovery. The Lord promises in Isaiah 61:3a, and provides for those who grieve in Zion, to bestow on them a crown of beauty, instead of ashes, the oil of joy, instead of mourning, a garment of praise, instead of a spirit of despair. So, if you don't know him, if you don't really know who God is, really, he loves you. You're created in his image. And all he asks is that you admit that you can't do this life on your own and that you need somebody to help you. And he will be there for you. And so you just have to ask him in your heart, and he will come into your heart. I mean, he is that graceful. And just like I accepted the Lord in high school and then walked away, he took me back. And so, thanks for letting me share.
Thank you.